They say John Wayne never showed fear. They say the man who faced down outlaws in 100 westerns didn't know the meaning of the word. They say he stared death in the face and laughed. They say he was invincible. But his friends knew the truth. On a November night in 1973, the toughest man in Hollywood sat alone in a leather chair with a half-empty bottle of tequila and a telephone pressed to his ear. His hands were shaking. Not from age, not from drink, not from the cold Pacific wind rattling the windows, from something far worse. He didn't call his wife. He didn't call his children. He didn't call his agent or his doctor or his priest. He didn't call any of the 100 people who owed him favors. He called Dean Martin. Dino. The voice cracked. I need you to come over, tonight. Dean didn't ask why. He didn't hesitate. He didn't make excuses about the show he was supposed to perform in 2 hours. He heard something in Wayne's voice he had never heard before, something that made his blood run cold. 40 minutes later, he walked through that door. What happened next would never be spoken about in public. 2 men, 1 bottle, a conversation that lasted until dawn, 5 words, whispered as the sun rose over Newport Beach, a goodbye that still echoes through Hollywood history. See you on the trail, Duke. This is the story Hollywood never wanted you to hear. To understand why John Wayne called Dean Martin that night, why he chose the Italian crooner over everyone else in his life, you have to go back to 1959, to a dusty film set in Tucson, Arizona, to a bottle of tequila shared between 2 men who had absolutely nothing in common. John Wayne was Hollywood royalty, the cowboy, the war hero, the symbol of American manhood. He had been the biggest star in the world for 2 decades. He didn't like singers. He thought they were soft, pretty boys who couldn't throw a punch or ride a horse or handle a day of real work under the Arizona sun. Dean Martin was the opposite of everything Wayne respected. The Italian crooner from Steubenville, Ohio. The man who pretended to be drunk on stage. The nightclub entertainer who made women swoon with a wink and a smile. The man Wayne's friends warned him about. He's a clown, Duke, one producer said. He doesn't belong in a western. But Howard Hawks, the director, insisted. He had seen something in Dean that nobody else noticed. Trust me, Duke, this kid is different. Give him a week. Wayne didn't trust anyone easily. But he trusted Hawks. The first week of Rio Bravo, they didn't speak. Wayne watched Dean from across the set, waiting for him to complain about the heat, the dust, the 5 a.m. call times, the heavy costumes. He waited for the singer to demand special treatment, to ask for his trailer to be moved closer, to whine about the food. Dean never complained. Not once, not about anything. He showed up early. He knew his lines. He did his own stunts when the coordinator said he didn't have to. He sat in the sun between takes without a word of protest. On the 7th night, Wayne knocked on Dean's trailer door with a bottle of Herradura tequila. What happened next would create a friendship that lasted 15 years, a bond that survived political arguments, career disasters, and everything Hollywood could throw at them. But in November 1973, that friendship would be tested by something neither man could fight. Something that didn't care about fame or money, or how many movies you'd made. The Duke was dying, and he only wanted one person by his side. Wayne stood at the trailer door that Arizona night, the bottle in his massive hand. Dean looked at the tequila, then at the man holding it. 6'4", 250 pounds. The most famous face in America. He didn't ask questions. He didn't make small talk. He didn't pretend to be honored or surprised. He just smiled that lazy smile. I drink anything that doesn't drink me first, Duke. Wayne laughed, a real laugh, not the movie laugh he used for cameras, the kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep. They sat on the trailer steps, passing the bottle back and forth, watching the desert sun disappear behind the mountains. The crew was gone, the set was silent, just 2 men and a bottle and the endless Arizona sky. They didn't talk about movies. They didn't talk about fame or money or box office numbers. They didn't talk about the women or the parties or the magazine covers. They talked about fathers who worked too hard and died too young, about the fear of being forgotten, about what it meant to be a man in a world that wanted you to be a symbol instead of a person. By the time the bottle was empty, something had changed. You're not what I expected, Dino, Wayne said. Neither are you, Duke. Dean Martin had grown up in Steubenville, Ohio. His father Guy cut hair 12 hours a day for pennies that barely kept food on the table. Dean had worked the steel mills before he turned 16. He had dealt blackjack in illegal backrooms where men got shot over $50. He had boxed under the name Kid Crochet until his nose broke one too many times to count. Wayne had grown up poor too. Iowa dirt, California desperation, hauling ice and furniture and anything else that would earn $1. Jobs that broke your back and your spirit before the movies came along and saved him. they recognized something in each other that night. The same hunger that never goes away no matter how much money you make. The same mask you wear for the public. The same scared kid hiding behind the legend, wondering when someone would figure out it was all an act. Frank Sinatra never understood the friendship. "The guy's a Republican, Dino," Frank said one night at the Sands. "He voted for Nixon twice. He makes speeches about Vietnam. How can you drink with that?" Dean shrugged. He didn't look up from his cards. "I don't care who a man votes for, Frank. I don't care what he says at rallies. I care if he's real. Duke is real. When he shakes your hand it means something. When he says he's your friend he means it. And what am I?" Dean smiled. That Dean Martin smile that could diffuse any situation. "You're my brother, Francis. You know that, but you're full of shit sometimes. Duke never is." Frank didn't speak to Dean for a week after that. But Dean wasn't wrong. In Hollywood, where everyone was always performing, where every friendship was really a business arrangement, authenticity was rarer than gold, and John Wayne was pure gold. 14 years later, Dean was backstage at the Sands when the call came. His assistant Jackie knocked with a face Dean had never seen on the young man before. White as paper, hands trembling. "Mr. Martin, it's John Wayne. He says it's urgent." Dean didn't finish his drink. He didn't check the mirror. He didn't tell the casino, or his manager, or the 1,000 people waiting to see him perform. He picked up the phone. "Duke, Dino." The voice was different, heavier, like a man carrying a weight he couldn't put down, like a man who had just been punched in the gut and was trying to pretend it didn't hurt. "I need you to come to Newport, tonight." "What's wrong?" "Silence. The kind of silence that says everything words can't." "I got news today, Dino. The kind of news a man shouldn't hear alone." Dean's jaw tightened. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. He had heard that tone before. In hospitals, at funerals, in the voices of men who knew their time was running out. "I'm on my way. Don't move." He hung up. Jackie stood frozen in the doorway, watching his boss move with a speed he had never witnessed in 3 years of service. Dean Martin was known for being relaxed, for never rushing, for treating every crisis like a minor inconvenience. "Not tonight. Cancel the second show," Dean said, grabbing his keys. "Mr. Martin, the casino will sorry duh. I don't care what the casino will do." Dean stopped. He looked at Jackie with eyes that had gone cold. "Tell them whatever you want. Tell them I'm sick. I don't care. My friend needs me." Jackie watched him disappear into the night. He didn't understand. He couldn't understand. He didn't know that some friendships are worth more than money, worth more than contracts, worth more than a casino full of high rollers waiting to see a show. He didn't know that Dean Martin drove 95 miles per hour through the desert that night with the radio off and the windows down, trying not to think about what was waiting at the other end. What Dean didn't know was that this would be the last real conversation he would ever have with the Duke, the last time they would sit together as equals, as friends, as two men who understood each other completely. But what Wayne was about to tell him would change how Dean looked at every friendship for the rest of his life. Dean pulled into Wayne's driveway at 11:47 p.m. The house was dark except for one window, the study. A single lamp burning against the Pacific night. He didn't ring the bell. The door was unlocked. He walked through the silent house, past the Western memorabilia covering every wall, past the photos of 100 films that had defined American cinema, past the awards and trophies that meant nothing anymore. The house felt like a museum, like something already dead. Wayne was in the study. Leather chair. Bottle of Herradura on the side table. The same brand from Arizona, 15 years ago. Dean noticed that immediately. The Duke had remembered. Wayne looked smaller somehow. Not physically. The man was still 6'4", still built like a mountain, but something in his eyes had dimmed. Something had gone out. "You came," Wayne said. "Of course I came." Dean sat across from him. He didn't take off his jacket. "You think I'd let you drink alone?" Wayne smiled. A tired smile. The smile of a man who had been fighting all day and wasn't sure how much fight he had left. "Everybody else, they don't know how to act around a dying man, Dino. They get soft. They get quiet. They look at you with those sad eyes and you can tell they're already writing the eulogy in their head. Start treating you like you're already gone. You're not dead yet, Duke." "No." Wayne poured 2 glasses. His hand trembled. The great John Wayne's hand trembled, and neither man mentioned it. "But I'm on my way." They drank in silence. The only sound was a grandfather clock ticking in the corner, counting down the seconds, measuring out what remained. "I'm not scared of dying, Dino." Wayne stared at his glass like it held answers. "I've been shot at, thrown from horses, damn near drowned making a picture once. I've had cancer cut out of me before. Death doesn't scare me." "Then what does?" Wayne looked up. His eyes were wet. John Wayne's eyes were wet, and Dean understood that he was seeing something no one else would ever see. Something the Duke would never show on camera or at parties or even to his own family. Being forgotten. He took a breath, a heavy breath. I've made 150 movies, Dino. I've been the biggest star in Hollywood for 30 years. I've got my name on buildings and theaters. But what does it mean? When I'm gone, will anyone remember the real me? Or just the guy on the screen? The costume, the character. He set his glass down. I've spent my whole life pretending to be something I'm not. A tough guy, a hero, a man who doesn't feel pain or fear. And now I'm running out of time and I don't even know who I really am anymore. Dean didn't answer right away. He lit a cigarette. He let the silence breathe. He knew that some moments require space, that jumping in with easy comfort would be an insult. Duke, he finally said, I've known you 15 years. You know what I remember? Wayne waited. I don't remember the movies. I don't remember the Oscars or the box office records. I don't remember any of that stuff. Dean leaned forward. I remember sitting on those trailer steps in Arizona, sharing a bottle, talking about our fathers. I remember you crying behind the soundstage when we shot The Sons of Katie Elder, because the scene reminded you of your mother. I remember you calling me at 3 in the morning, when your marriage was falling apart. I remember you laughing so hard tequila came out your nose when I told you that story about Jerry. Wayne's lip trembled. He didn't speak. He couldn't speak. That's the real you, Duke. The man who cries and laughs and calls his friends at 3 a.m. And I'm not going to forget it. Not ever. I don't care if the whole world forgets tomorrow. I will remember. Until the day I die. Silence. The clock ticked. The wind rattled the windows. Wayne wiped his eyes with the back of his massive hand. He didn't apologize for crying. He didn't make excuses. You're a good friend, Dino, he whispered. I learned from the best, Duke. The hours passed. The bottle emptied. The ashtray filled with cigarette butts. They talked about everything and nothing. About movies they wished they'd made, and women they wished they'd married. About regrets and triumphs, and all the strange turns life takes when you're not paying attention. They didn't talk about death again. They didn't need to. They had said what needed to be said. The first light crept through the windows, orange and pink and gold, spreading across the Pacific. The world waking up to a new day. Another day. One more than Wayne had expected to see when he picked up that phone. Dean knew it was time. He had a show that night. A life to get back to. But he didn't want to leave. Duke, he said. I should. I know. Wayne stood. Slowly. His bones ached. His body was betraying him in 100 small ways. But his eyes were clear. Clearer than they'd been in months. Thanks for coming, Dino. I mean it. More than you know. They faced each other in the morning light. Two giants. Two legends. Two friends who understood that this might be the last time, that every goodbye from here on out carried a weight it never had before. Dean pulled him into a hug. Not the Hollywood kind, not the backslapping embrace of industry friends. The real kind, the kind that says everything words can't, the kind that holds on a moment longer than necessary. When they pulled apart, both men had wet eyes. Neither mentioned it, neither needed to. Dean walked to the door. His hand was on the knob, the cold metal against his palm, when Wayne spoke. Hey, Dino. Dean turned. Wayne smiled. That John Wayne smile. The one from all the movies. But softer now. More real. Dean looked at him. At the man who had taught him that strength wasn't about volume or bravado. It was about showing up. About being there when it counted. About driving through the desert at midnight because someone needed you. See you on the trail, Duke, Dean whispered. The room went still. The clock stopped ticking. The wind stopped blowing. Everything stopped. Wayne nodded. His voice cracked when he spoke. See you on the trail, pal. Dean walked out into the morning light. He didn't look back. If he looked back, he would break. He would turn around and sit back down and never leave. He got in his car. He sat there for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The engine wasn't running. The radio was off. Just silence and sunlight and the weight of what had just happened. Then Dean Martin, the king of cool, the man who never showed emotion, the man who made a career out of pretending nothing bothered him, put his head down on that steering wheel and cried. He cried for his friend. He cried for himself. He cried for all the goodbyes that were coming. And then he wiped his eyes, started the car and drove back to his life.
John Wayne didn't die in 1973. The Duke was tougher than anyone expected. Tougher than the doctors. Tougher than the odds. Tougher than cancer itself. He kept making movies. He kept showing up on set at 5 a.m. with his lines memorized. He kept throwing punches and riding horses and being John Wayne. He didn't quit. He didn't give up. But Dean knew. Every phone call they shared. Every visit to Newport Beach. He heard the clock ticking. He saw the weight his friend was carrying. He watched the strongest man he knew get a little weaker every year. They didn't talk about that night. They didn't need to. Some conversations only happen once, and once is enough. Wayne made 4 more films after that night. He won his only Oscar for True Grit. He kept fighting. He kept showing up, because that's what John Wayne did. That's all he knew how to do. But in the quiet moments when the cameras weren't rolling, he would call Dean, not to talk about movies or politics. Just to hear a friendly voice. You watching the game, Dino? Yeah, Duke. You? Yeah, silence. The good kind. The kind between old friends who don't need words. Okay, talk soon, Duke. That was it. That was enough. On June 11, 1979, John Wayne lost his battle. He was 72 years old. The whole world mourned. Presidents gave speeches. Flags flew at half-staff. Dean was in Vegas when he got the news. An assistant knocked on his dressing room door with that look on his face. He didn't finish his show. He couldn't. He went back to his room alone. He ordered a bottle of Herradura tequila, the same brand, the only brand. He didn't cry. He had done his crying 6 years ago, in that car outside Wayne's house, gripping the steering wheel as the sun came up. He just raised his glass to the empty room, to the memory, to the friend. See you on the trail, Duke. Then he drank alone until the sun came up. Years later, Patrick Wayne, the Duke's eldest son, was asked about Dean Martin in an interview. They were an unlikely pair, Patrick said. My father was this big, loud cowboy, Republican, conservative. Dean was this smooth Italian crooner from the Rat Pack. On paper it shouldn't have worked. It didn't make any sense. He paused. His eyes went distant. But they understood each other. They both knew what it was like to wear a mask for a living, to be a symbol instead of a person. And when they were together, they could take the masks off. They could just be two guys from nowhere who got lucky. Patrick's voice caught. After that night in 1973, my father changed. He stopped worrying so much about his legacy. He started saying I love you more. He started hugging us. He let us see him cry. He wiped his eyes. I think Dean gave him permission to be human. And that was the greatest gift anyone ever gave my father. When Dean Martin died on Christmas Day 1995, his children found something in his private study, hidden away in a cabinet, behind the gold records and the photographs and all the memorabilia from a legendary career. An empty bottle of Herradura tequila, old, dusty, the label faded almost to nothing. Taped to the bottle was a note in Dean's handwriting, 2 lines, faded ink, Rio Bravo, 1959, first drink with Duke, keep this forever. 36 years he had kept that bottle. Through 3 marriages and 2 divorces, through the death of his son Dean Paul in that plane crash, through the end of his career and the long, lonely years that followed, he had lost almost everything that mattered to him, but he kept that bottle, an empty bottle, a memory, a friendship that didn't need an audience or cameras or magazine covers. The story of Dean Martin and John Wayne isn't about fame. It isn't about movies or Oscars or box office records. It's about showing up. When John Wayne got the worst news of his life, he didn't call his agent. He didn't call his publicist. He called his friend. And his friend came. No questions. No hesitation. Through the desert. At midnight. 95 miles per hour with the radio off. That's friendship. The real kind. The kind that doesn't ask what's in it for me. The kind that says you need me, I'm there. So the next time a friend calls, really calls, not just to chat, but because something is wrong, because they got news that no one should hear alone. Remember that night in Newport Beach. Remember the tequila bottle. Remember the 2 men talking until dawn. Remember Dean Martin, the man who never showed emotion, crying in his car because his friend was dying. And ask yourself, would you show up? Would you cancel the show? Would you drive through the desert at midnight? Dean Martin made a career out of making people laugh. He was the king of cool, the man who never took anything seriously. But the thing he was proudest of wasn't the movies or the songs or the television shows. It was a dusty bottle and a friendship that lasted until the very end. See you on the trail, Duke. See you on the trail.